board now, we can, if there's anything else you wanted to add to the list, any comments on the list that I can bring it internally.
So I would first kind of disagree with you on the contractor's role. I mean, the town, the council can set the scope of work, and it's the contractor who needs to follow that scope of work. So you can be very clear as to what needs to be salvaged, particularly if you want to salvage, brick, stone, what have you. I mean, obviously you can't salvage stuff that's rotting, but if you're very clear that, you salvage and store it and don't destroy it, then the contractor's on the hook for that. I've done numerous restoration jobs where we're very clear that they need to salvage material.
So real quick, some more context. So the pavilion. So the idea was the original concept had the pavilion and had the house. The council agreed, between the surveys and other public input and comment, it was to go ahead and remove the building and replace it with a pavilion. That being the highest point on the property, there's some general discussion that it would be on the same footprint as the house, and then also do public restrooms. So I did talk to Ben this evening on sort of the way in, talking about his background as an artist.
Architectural engineer.
I know, I'm saying ability to just sort of draw concepts, but I'm sorry, I'm chewing gum, I shouldn't have gum. Is to what elements of the house could be incorporated into the pavilion. A lot of the pavilions you see now, like Fauquier Park, has the wooden beams and has like the standing seam roof. Interestingly enough, a lot of the houses on Blight Drive were designed after the Sears homes. So now or not Sears homes, the Lewis homes. So now we're in a situation where how do we duplicate sort of the aesthetic that's there? You can keep the chimney, perhaps. The windows, do you somehow reincorporate the windows into the elements of the pavilion? One idea I threw out was you have the stone pillars right now that hold the columns of the front porch. Could you reuse those as part of the columns that would have the higher pavilion? So one of the things we discussed too is, do we wait for the council to come up with a design, or do we want to recommend some concepts about how to incorporate these different elements? So
I feel like we should be proactive.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's already our mandate to design, and we should probably go ahead and do that. I did have a couple questions.
Sure.
There's dormers on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we could possibly look at keeping?
Yeah.
The second thing, I know that we already have a storage problem.
Mm-hmm.
Since the weight of the actual building is gone, could there be put in place like a door or something you can pull up that you can actually go down instead of filling in that basement area?
Mm-hmm.
Can you still utilize that for storage?
Something we could ask.
Yeah, just a thought.
Yep. So, well, I guess if they would have a be a cement slab, that would be the foundation. But I see what you're saying. Could you somehow keep? Yeah, we can certainly ask as part of that. Robert, yes, I think so. Okay.
So my question is, when we're talking about pavilion, is it going to be open on all four sides, like your traditional pavilion, with some incorporation of, aesthetics that we would salvage and kind of incorporate into the design? Is the thought behind?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what everybody's thinking is how do we incorporate this, right? I mean,
it would be an open air pavilion to your point,
yeah.
Correct.
I mean, we have this note about the windows, but as I page through and look at the photos, I think this is from the December, agenda meeting. I think it's kind of silly that we're talking about this building and we don't have any architectural precedent or photos to discuss, right? So that's why I brought this packet. But these windows are not historic; they look vinyl, right? So why are we gonna salvage and save the vinyl? I think one of the things that gives this home the character to what Marchant said was, the stone pillars that kind of go from this strong stone foundation up to the wood. It's very common of that time of this type of construction, and even the cedar siding is kind of a characteristic of this home as well. I think that becomes a little bit of a challenge to try to incorporate that in, but I also like the idea of trying to incorporate this stone chimney in some fashion is, trying to build new but pay homage to what was there in the past and kind of think back to that historic fabric.
Another thought that came to mind too, since it's going to be used for like just a public pavilion, gathering place, people having parties and stuff like that. Maybe salvaging some of that brick or whatever that's not utilized in the actual framework. And that side door that's no longer going to be there, maybe incorporating some kind of artistic framework to where people can maybe walk to a gazebo or something.
You mean like the side one there?
Yeah, exactly. Just some kind of structure where it's, like people can actually walk to a gazebo or something, to where you could have weddings or something like that, where you could set up, chairs on either side or something like that. But just I'm thinking of ways also that, like you mentioned before, the town can use the structure for, maybe making a little revenue too.
Right, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Rashawn, but I think the vast majority, like the big events that go on at this park are Haymarket Day, right, and then the concert in the park, and then it's used off and on with folks using the playground, right, and I think having a pavilion, yes, people can eat their lunch, eat meals there, whatever, hang out, take shelter from the rain. But I think there was also that component of having bathrooms, right? And so I think for me, it's like, okay, they're talking about demoing this, but then what's the timeline? What does this whole project look like? Is it a rush to demo and then we sit and wait for this pavilion? Because that's what's happened before. Not saying, yes, I realize that was an older administration, but what's to say that the council doesn't fall into those old habits? I think we kind of look at this in a comprehensive plan.
So I think the entrance, they've already started to put an RFP together to permit the demolition. We have a year, the permit's good for a year. My suggestion to the council was there's some cost savings to be had if you demo and then build the pavilion at the same time. If you just tear it down and return it back to earth, there's some land disturbance requirements. If you reestablish it, then come back in and disturb it again, the rules change. So if you just simply, when you disturb it, take it down. So I've offered to the council, could we parallel these two efforts and so that it's done at once rather than one after the other? And I do have the same concern that we'll lose momentum. Take the building down and then
Right.
time passes and we don't get anything there. So some of the practical things, I think, what I wanted to suggest is maybe we, between now and the next meeting, if we wanted to meet on site and just review around, I was thinking like some of the architectural features here, those, I thought they were more ornate. They're not more ornate. You can, you can make those, but what I thought was interesting on the front is you have those decorative brackets. Could you recycle those decorative brackets and put them in the new pavilion? The style, what do you call the style with the angled, where the sides of the window are smaller and then they.
Oh, it's tapered?
The taper, I forget
Yeah.
the name of that. So that was, you guys remember this, you had the big stone columns in front. If you were to recycle those and then just reuse these as the columns, but how do you tie that, and do you sort of keep the front porch and then tie it into a pavilion? The challenge with this is do you want the pavilion to sit where the open end is facing the street? That's harder to incorporate this. If you think about the side, sorry, it's hard to do with the pictures here. This side looks more like it might be the front.
Right.
So how do you orient the pavilion sideways so that you can capture the porch from the side, but then have the open end? I don't know if it makes sense where I'm going with it.
It does.
So-
And I think that you're right. I mean, I think we have an opportunity here, since the council is set on demolition. We can now, like you said, put some artistic flair into this to make it as nice as we want it to be. I do like the idea of the same footprint kind of being there, and just being more purposeful about maybe what we thought like the intent can be for some of the areas that are left, so people can maybe want to rent the space or utilize the space. And if we're careful, this could become a photographic cool for people coming to Haymarket.
Oh, look at, yeah, what do
I
you call that?
second that, in that, you know, just having a standard pavilion, like, you know, where people go and maybe have like Sunday lunch or, you know, with their family, and maybe have some more utility out of it, where it does potentially become, you know, like a revenue stream for, you know, having maybe incorporate some of the architectural features into it, where maybe we could incorporate like a featured wall where if there's a wedding party, they can go up and there is a moment in time in history that has not passed. So it's more than a pavilion. Yes, it serves, you know, as a pavilion, but it also has dual or multi-purpose. You know, so we have to be very thoughtful in our suggestions of this pavilion, because selfishly, I do want it to stand out to other pavilions in the area, so that we would have something to be proud of Haymarket.
Understood. And I think the earlier comment too about use, I think the idea that the council was toying around that it would be a rentable space.
Okay.
So if you wanted, if you wanted to rent it for a birthday party and kids will play on the playground, you'll have that opportunity. You know, in terms of doing the bathrooms were supposed to be a part of it too. So whether they do them independently or together, in my opinion, the pavilion spot is pretty static. I don't think the location's going to move, and the materials that we build it with, or the design wouldn't necessarily change, because we want it to be compatible with the bungalow style or whatever that we're trying to recreate. The bathrooms might take more thought and design and consideration. Would we want those to be more, sort of recreate this more bungalow, be a very nice looking bathhouse, or do we want it more utilitarian and not be the focal point, have this be the focal point and have the bathroom sort of be tucked away and sort of on their own? So,
I do think you can offset the bathroom a little bit. I thought you brought up a good point, John, about maybe making a feature wall, so that the bathroom's on one side and you have a feature wall where the fireplace is.
Yep.
Maybe get a local artist to do some painting about the history of Haymarket or something.
that's a great idea. And then, so Emily was talking about that too, if you, forgetting that the windows weren't original, but one of the ideas was, could you create that, save a wall or recreate that wall so it's like you are part of the house or something
More
like that.
like a movie set, how it's actually open, but it feels like a space that you can, you know, use. So just a feature wall to tuck away the bathrooms, right?
Yeah, definitely. So would it be helpful to go out and walk it and talk about it and sort of, okay.
My thought is, if it's council's final decision on what the pavilion will end up looking like in terms of establishment of it, perhaps as the board ought to cast a very wide net with salvageable materials. And then as part of this list will be included in the RFP for
Okay.
the demolition and then reconstruction in the
We don't
pavilion.
have a timeline right now for other than putting the RFP out, we don't have a timeline for taking it down, do we?
I don't believe so. Did Emily say otherwise?
No.
Okay.
So,
Just want to clarify.
yeah, no, I guess I wanted to suggest was, yeah, I think we wanted to say, I think what I'm thinking in my mind is we come up with a concept that we present back, and with the concept would be the elements that would be. So I think the front porch sounds like, can we incorporate the basis of the front porch? The windows, sounds like the windows are not, you know, specific to it. But the design of the windows, if we were to incorporate
The window frames of the trim, I
Yeah.
would argue.
Yeah, and then the chimney, could you reincorporate? Now, if we go inside the chimney's, you'd have to create a new hearth. I mean, it's like a 60s sort of Art Deco. You guys have been in there, so you've seen the side of that. So we probably have to rethink how we wanted to open up the inside of the chimney. I do know on the other house, when they took the chimney down, it was hard to keep when they moved it. Just trying to detach the house, but they were trying to move the whole house. They weren't trying to demolish it. They were trying to pull the whole house. So, well, let's do this. If we can, a couple of things I think we would want to take detailed photographs before it's demoed. Do you feel comfortable drawing up some concepts?
Hand sketches, yeah.
Yeah, hand sketches on because you're a good idea. I'm sorry, we should have had pictures up for us to look at photographs. But if you picture yourself looking at the house, you have the 4 columns that flank the door, but then you have the bump out of the house. So the house is actually wider than the porch. So I'm thinking if you did a pavilion just the width of the porch, it's going to be pretty narrow. Or do you think it would be too narrow? Would we want it wider? So the square footage in the original plan was about 3,200 square feet, 3,000 square feet.
You'd have to almost look at the proportions when you get, almost look at it on site to get a feel of
Okay.
the proportions.
Because I was thinking if you were to just create the pavilion around the width of the porch, then that would be a smaller dimension than what the house would be. So that's where if you turn the pavilion sideways, and maybe had the porch as sort of an attachment to it, like you said, like you sort of step out from underneath the pavilion and step onto the porch on both sides, that would be an interesting concept.
Is there anything historic inside? I don't remember. That was all pretty much redone, right, when they did the food pantry?
A lot of the moldings are still there.
Okay.
A lot of the doors are still there. Some of the hardware, I think, is upstairs in the attic. So, but I think I was talking about that earlier. What can you really use? I mean,
That's the problem.
you could pull out, like if you pulled out the, what do you call it? I don't think there's a lot of trusses in the house. I don't know what other features of the house that we could.
Might not be able to use it in the house itself, but if we do decide when we go and look at it, and we like the gazebo idea, then we could take a lot of the wood and just, build a little gazebo off the side of it,
In addition to the pavilion?
Yeah.
There was a design for a gazebo in the back.
Okay, yeah, so we can salvage some of the.
Yeah.
And I, correct me, I think, isn't there a crawl space underneath the porch? Or is that not?
Yes, so when you go in the cellar, on the back side underneath the kitchen, there's a cellar that you can walk in.
Oh, is it walk down?
You walk down in the cellar, but you're right, the front porch is, the front of the house is a crawl space.
Okay.
Okay.
It's only a half basement, I guess you'd say. But,
Yeah, because I think, still, there was the water infiltration to the foundation wall, so I think, there's things there that would still need to be addressed, but yeah.
well, I think even if when you look at the side, the concrete on the side porch, I think you would have to re-pour the slab. You keep the foundations of the stone columns, but you might have to, like, right now you step up
Right.
2 and then you step another one. I don't know if the pavilion would be that level, flat all the way across. It almost seemed like you would take everything out and then have to re-pour the slab.
Yeah, probably. And then look at like the ADA requirements and all
Yeah.
that other stuff.
So, okay, well, why don't we, do we want to wait till the next month to do it? Do we want to set up a time between now and then, maybe an afternoon where we can go?
Yeah,
We don't have to wait a month necessarily?
yeah, for us, next week, this week, whatever.
Okay. What's your schedule like next week? Wednesday generally open?
You said Wednesday?
Next Wednesday?
What time are you thinking, like about 5 or something?
Yeah, we don't do it while it's bright.
To confirm, do town staff need to be present for this? Okay.
Yeah, 28th.
If we publicly notice it, I can take notes of the.
Okay, just to confirm.
So,
Yeah, I don't see why I can't.
so the idea would be meet, sort of walk around, talk about, sort of concepts, maybe some orientation. And then the idea would be come back if we can do some preliminary sketches that we can review.
I have a hard stop, probably like, if we could do it earlier, that'd be better. But when I would have like a hard stop at like 5:15. So
15?
yeah.
How early are you on
I'd
Wednesdays?
have to check, yeah. I don't know offhand.
Or did we want to do it the 6th? Is that too late? March 6th. That's a Wednesday as well.
You want to get it before the town
I think the
council
idea
meeting?
would, well, not before the town council meeting, before the next ARB meeting, if we can go meet on it.
Okay.
Have Ben work up some concepts on that meeting. I can report back to the council at next week's meeting. Yeah, we have a work session on Monday. I can just say, hey, we're gonna meet again, come back with some concepts. I think we want to talk about too, maybe some suggestions on where the bathrooms might go. And sort of some suggestions on that design. I'd rather us sort of lead with the staff, sort of lead this
Yes.
discussion and then have the council react to that. And then to your point, if we come up with some concepts, we can better identify the salvageable pieces.
Now, with that in mind, though, let me list out what we have so I can at least provide a draftable list for the RFP. So just to confirm, we have dormers on the roof, window frame trim, brickwork for design elements, existing siding, the salvageable stone columns, base of the front porch, and the chimney.
In the side porch too.
Side porch as well? Okay. From the discussion, am I missing anything else on that list to provide for
The
the draft?
decorative brackets on the,
You could start it off by including but not limited to, and then it kind of gives you an opening later on if we find that we want to add something.
Definitely.
If we salvage a lot of this stuff, does it cut down on the demolition costs, or is it?
no. It'll probably, because if, they can't just go in with a wrecking ball and take it down, they're
Well,
gonna have to extract.
they can't go in with a wrecking ball and demo it because there has to be lead and asbestos in here, and so that needs to be handled properly. Is that called out in the RFP? About
I've not seen the
abatement?
RFP. But we
Okay.
can double check that.
But that should be addressed, right? Because we have children playing in that playground, right? And lead paint when you start demoing it becomes airborne. And that needs to be properly abated so it's not going all over the place.
Well, bad choice of words. What I meant was, if you're having to salvage these pieces, it takes more labor
Yeah.
to recycle those versus just sort of coming in, grabbing it, and sort of pulling it off. so.
I just want to clarify.
No.
To-
Well, there's been issues when the firehouse came down across the street, and there was some concern about, they call it fugitive dust. Dust that was leaving the site and coating everything else. So, okay. So the 6th, with the 6th, everybody have their calendars, the 6th be better.
Will we need to have a working session after that, or could we discuss the design elements during the actual, it feels like we need to kind of like sit down and kind of,
Come back and collect our thoughts.
yeah.
If we put it on the 6th, is that something you guys could staff if we had enough advance time? Okay, go down and come back. Okay. And then if any more concepts we want to review, then we can review that at the ARB meeting the following month. Okay.
Just walk away with
Okay.
some thoughts about where we're leaning.
Okay. So, to reiterate, we go down there, sort of get a better understanding of the elements, and maybe just make some suggestions on how to orient the pavilion on there, what elements to include, and then we can walk around and see if there's additional salvage items that we would like to offer them for consideration, and then the time we would want to do it daylight, so is that 5 o'clock? Is it 5 o'clock too early?
I'll make sure I'll work from home.
Is that going to, let us know if that's a conflict for you guys and we can reschedule, so. Okay, so we work session, we meet here at 6, open up the meeting, recess, go down, come back, finish our discussion, give some. Start at 5, open it up, close it, go down, come back, finish up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, in between now and then, if you guys have a chance to visit or any other things you guys want to take a look at, or if you need to get into the house, let us know. Any other guidance you need, Thomas?
I think that will do for now.
Okay, I'll report out in my liaison report. I'll write up what we talked about as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you for this. Appreciate that.
No, I didn't mean to. Oh, sure. I picture it.
No, I was trying to figure out how we're gonna have this discussion not being there. So
Yeah,
That was a good
I
idea.
always find it helpful whenever we're talking about any sort of architectural features or samples or anything like that. So it's good to have it right then and there.
cool. Okay, next agenda item: old business.
Old business, in terms of sign applications, Crossroads Village tenants continue to follow guidelines.
Okay.
We have had a few new businesses. Goodfellas Pizza had a grand opening.
Okay.
We're expecting a few more to arrive soon in the multi-tenant structures in Crossroads Village, an Indian restaurant, a Vietnamese pho restaurant, Five Guys.
There's a
So
Five Guys going in
I believe so.
There's a Five Guys in Gainesville.
They've at least reached out to me about signage.
right across
so
from Foster's. Oh my gosh.
I'll pinpoint exact location and I'll get back to the board on that.
Oh, no, you're fine. The hotel making it. There's the hotel that's proposed behind that. Is that still moving
Yes,
forward?
currently it's under preliminary plan review.
Okay.
I've spoken to the developers about the architectural review board process. I've received no submissions for that.
Okay,
We hope to receive the submissions once we have preliminary approval and they start submitting the final site plan,
okay.
just to make sure no major edits are required after approval
Correct.
in case anything changes in the major final site plan.
There you go.
Have you mentioned, or can you mention who the,
Yes, it's a Nova Hotel. Nova Hotel.
Nova?
I don't know, I'd have to clarify on what branch it is. I can get back to the board on that.
Oh, what flag
but-
it is? Okay. At the council level, oh, I'm going to do a council report later. What other projects we have? The Blight, is there some on Blight Drive that are still trying to develop?
With Blight Drive Townhomes, we're still waiting on correspondence. We discussed the necessity to install a sidewalk on a certain portion of it. We're still in discussion with the developer on that particular aspect.
Any movement on the rezoning for south of town, the residential rezoning?
Currently, we've submitted comments to the developer and have not received a next submission.
Okay. And then the house at the corner of Fayette and Washington, I'm sorry, I'm playing 20 questions. Fayette
Fayette
and
and
Washington.
Jefferson or Fayette and Washington?
Fayette and Jefferson Street. When those come in, they'll have to come in for RERB review as well, I assume. The houses, the new houses construction?
Were they not presented prior to,
Not that I recall.
just to recall, because I remember reviewing the final site plan when I first got hired, so I was in the middle of the phase. I didn't know if it had
You
been
could check, I mean, that
before.
was during a time that I don't think I was involved in the town at the time, but I don't
Okay.
recall them submitting designs for those houses. I guess the idea being, I recommend we get ahead of it, that way we can talk to it and we're not an afterthought, so,
Makes sense.
okay.
Current status of that site plan, though, is we're undergoing a minor site plan revision of the footprint.
Okay. Any other things you're curious about, want to know?
The architectural design guidelines, where do we stand? with
That's
those?
part of new business,
Oh, okay,
as in, I'll be bringing those to the board in the coming months.
okay.
Okay, we can switch to new business then, okay?
They're
Design
related to that.
guidelines?
Guidelines, and that is the main aspect of new business.
Okay. You guys, I forgot old business, you guys saw the signs up on the front of the building? Yeah, so, finally, yes. On the new business, we did talk, well, I'll talk about the council report. I do want to talk to Emily about getting the house out back, getting the windows replaced and the doors replaced. It's been boarded up for so long. The ARB, we probably need to approve whatever window installation or door installation they put on there, but
House out back, you mean the one that has Cupcake Heaven?
yeah. I was supposed to remind Emily to look at if that space is leased or not. But if that's something we can address within our maintenance budget to get that that wrapped up and cleaned up. So that's all I have for new business. Planning Commission updates?
There was a discussion for the 1 mile review. Corner of 29 and Old Carolina Road where that new church is going in with 208, is it townhomes? Or single family homes. And there was a discussion about Old Carolina potentially becoming 4 lanes.
Oh, really?
So the concerns that we had are the traffic going up Jefferson towards Washington and just traffic concerns in general for that road. Yeah, that's pretty much all we had on the agenda was that.
Cool. Council updates, we went through a planning exercise to prioritize capital projects and some other element or other priorities we wanted to look at. So I think tentatively it was the town, in no particular order, the town center site plan. So we have a site plan approved, but it's moving forward with financing that. The park, doing the park, 2 parts. It's the demo and then the pavilion and the bathrooms, but also doing a planning exercise to update the visions, to update the master plan. I don't think the intent was to start over from scratch, but to sort of reaffirm whether or not the previous plan, the elements of that plan are still appropriate and whether or not they want to change anything or tweak anything on that. And then the other one was public parking. As these sites start to infill, parking is becoming the lack thereof is becoming a problem. So there was some interest in looking at a parking study and potentially some opportunities for public parking in the town with some of the vacant lots that we still have. So that would be an assessment of again, the parking, looking at the parking standards and if there's any opportunities to do public parking. So one of the suggestions I brought up was the historic district signage. We are a registered district or legally established district. The brown signs you put out on the highway that says Haymarket Historic District, one of the comments we've been getting is we're duplicating what we have here down there, Italian restaurant here, Italian restaurant there, pizza place here, pizza place down there. So it's how do you encourage people to move past there and come into town? And one of the ideas was the historic district signage. People know that's not the downtown. People know this is the downtown. So we do have some TOT monies, transit occupancy tax, that come from the hotel. We're going to talk about maybe using some of that money to get that signage up. And also wayfinding. There were supposed to be some entrance signs that we're going to look at, and some other wayfinding, getting people through town to the different businesses. So those are sort of the big key projects that we're kicking around. We also authorized a full-time events. Did we approve that fully? Okay. Events coordinator. Right now the events coordinator is part-time. That will be considered for a full-time position, and would be able to pull back some of the responsibilities that the town staff's having to step in to support, like the farmers market and Haymarket Day and all those sorts of things. So, anything else on the council level, guys, that I'm missing?
I don't think so.
No, sorry, quick. Yeah.
Quick question, the only thing I wasn't tracking with was you said the town centers, we've approved a revision or maybe do?
No, so we call this the town center, and it includes all the buildings that we have, the building here, and here. There was a master plan that redid the parking, redid the travel ways, created a more public space out on the corner, eliminated sort of the cut through that's there, redid parking in the back, did a dumpster pad, and it added, I think, once you laned it out, it added some additional spaces. So, but that's a lot of earthwork, and it also accommodates a turn lane. It duplicates what we have on Washington Street. So it would widen near the intersection. It also would have separate parking for the police department. And then there's some interest in redoing the town hall. There was a town plan to redo this council chambers and actually add an addition on the back and put an elevator shaft. And there's interest for security reasons, consolidating our two entrance doors into just the police door, and that would be sort of the main entrance, and you'd walk in and then you move to the different parts of the building from there. And we reclaim that space, so that's part of that too. Which by the way, your issue about, not issue, but the discuss about coming up Jefferson.
I mentioned
The hotel has dedicated right-of-way to widen that if we were to create opposing turn lanes at the intersection.
I did make a comment in the meeting yesterday. I did have because I know that was part of our capital improvements. Both those intersections, to maybe, if this project does go through, to maybe prioritize that a little bit.
Is the project done? Do we know if the rezoning is done?
Still, I believe, second submission review.
Yeah.
The one out in the county.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to digress for a second. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The traffic impact study, do you know if they evaluated this intersection here?
I would have to get back with the board on that.
Well, I know it's not an ARB discussion. That's my planner hat on. So we'll talk offline. But if they're showing an impact to this intersection, maybe there's some things that they can do to help facilitate the cost of that, whether through proffer or some other means. So usually when you put in an assessment, it evaluates all the intersections. And if it has an impact, they have to figure out a way to mitigate it based on the amount of trips that go through the intersection. So maybe that's
Something to look at on the council level.
Yep. Sorry. Off topic. I think that's all I have for the council updates. Any questions about what's going on? Oh, pedestrian stuff too. There's a big effort to address the pedestrian crosswalks. VDOT has put the kibosh on some of the innovative crosswalk design.
We're talking more light up, those kind of things.
Yeah, light up. So if you've been out on Cat Harpin, going out toward 234, when you go through that age-restricted community, they have we call it the suicide lane, or the that median in the middle, that's lighted and has all the signs. So we were talking about, could we do something like that in town? And what VDOT said is it's actually, they've had more accidents because of that, because pedestrians feel more safe. And they call it pedestrian refuge. That's the official term, is give it refuge in the middle. But I guess, did I say that correctly, Thomas? Was that there's,
Well, as part of the town park sidewalk site plan, that is actually something that we're looking at, a crosswalk study for what we've designed so far. Right now, the approved design has just the simple, regular crosswalk, and we're looking into options to ensure as much pedestrian safety as possible as we think about how to innovate this space.
but they've not put the kibosh, but they've had some feedback. So there's council, well, could we do this, this, and this based on local examples? And VDOT's coming back saying that's probably not the best design or best model to implement, just because it's creating more confident pedestrian crossing, I guess. So I don't think anyone was killed on it, but they've had
See,
vehicle
there was a
accidents.
bad accident. It wasn't pedestrian related, but that whole intersection, especially with the flashing yellow light. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Are they gonna look at the crosswalk situation here on the other side too, with 15 and Washington? It's just like when you, if you're walking over to Walmart from Haymarket, it just seems like it's like suicide as well.
oh, it's still some
Both
issues.
lanes of traffic, I'm just
I
curious.
think that's something we can look at that as well. So, but the idea is to look at all the pedestrian crossings along town, so. That's my tirade. Anything?
Well, I was just gonna, even as close to our home and the park, just kids run across, sometimes I watch them unsupervised, and they just, cars are like screeching off because a kid has darted across from,
How do you get them?
how do you, get them to cross over to the park?
Well, I forgot the big point. The park, sidewalk project's has been awarded and should start. And so you'll have the sidewalk across, and then you will have, that's what you're referring to as the crosswalk, right? Was as part of the sidewalk project is to do that crosswalk over to your,
Oh, okay.
so it'll be right to your front door.
Welcome.
I know some of the issues that I have, just, I'm standing there forever because cars don't stop, when technically pedestrians have the right of way in Virginia.
Yeah.
So-
Or when you see the crosswalk pylon that's been hit
Yeah.
a couple of times.
Doesn't instill confidence.
And then last thing, snow removal during snowstorms. There was we did have a contract to clear the snow. It was some communication error on who pulled the trigger on the contractor doing the work. So we were since resolved that. We've resolved that, and we've the contractor now will go out and do the work and pre-treat ahead of time for the sidewalks along Main Street. And then lastly, we're putting out for bid trash service. Do we have any feedback on the trash service yet, or?
I believe as of yesterday, the RFP was updated, correct? And then,
The bidding conference, or? So, reason why I brought this up is there's some discussion whether or not continue to do the 2-day trash service. Tipping fees have gone up at the dump, so we're gonna see an increase in our trash removal services, which if the HOA pays for it, it's probably gonna go through the.
My concern with that is it's hard enough in our community to police it with the 2 days. People just throw whatever they want out there.
Right.
So is that part of the RFP to do that, or are we expecting that people may come back and say,
They're waiting to see what they say. I think that was raised in the meeting.
okay,
This is what we have.
Mhm.
We're just not sure.
can you match that or not? Okay,
It's gonna be in
okay.
So the reason that we're looking for a new trash service provider is because the cost at the dump is going up?
No, the contract ended. Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay,
contract
okay.
period ended. They let us know that if they were to be renewed, that the fees would go up because of the tipping fees. And so we put it back out to bid, and then that's the question came up saying, would 2-day or 1-day versus
Okay.
2-day be a cost savings to offset?
So we still have the tipping fee regardless, it's just we potentially save by paring back from 2 to 1.
Correct. So if you have thoughts on that,
That's my only concern, just people just throw stuff.
I mean, I think they're going to do that even, I mean, they already do that with two, so
Yeah.
what's to say they're going to do not, you know.
Well, I'm gonna say it'll be worse with one, if they do it to one. That's what I was saying.
I don't know. I mean, I think at least because we're in an HOA and we can at least enforce that better because we have rules and regulations about when they're supposed to be out and so now it's like, okay, like you can't a resident can't say, oh, well, it was trash day, so I'm still within that limit. It's like, no, there's only one day a week.
Yeah.
yeah, that's always I'm sorry, the HOA didn't pay for the trash service, the town pays for it, so. Okay, that really was my last one. Anything else for the good of the group? Okay, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, moving seconded, meeting's adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.